Welcome in to Hilton Coliseum. Mason Voth, Drew Galloway here with you live. This is one of those games, Drew, where you think to yourself, why are we doing this? Why are we making this trip? What is the point? As you know, so many teams do when you have an inferior team and you're going on the road, and you obviously how the season's gone. And then it's moments that come after the game ends that you think to yourself, oh, this is why. You kind of get the reward that comes with everything. And I don't know that you expect it to happen against Iowa State typically, but the way it ended up working out, K-State gets it done. It's an exciting time, and the experience in this building was incredible. Also, weird that TJ Otzelberger's post-game radio show, they don't play over the speakers. Sorry, you're not going to get to hear that in the background. But nobody has stuck around for much of the festivities. The few fans that stayed around after, they were comical, Drew. We had people saying that the refs needed to be investigated. There needed to be an investigation into the officiating in this game because K-State and the refs were clearly in cahoots. There were also the words thrown around that K-State got more calls than the Chiefs do. So real double whammy if you're a Cap fan and a Chiefs fan out there. Both your teams have been accused of cheating by Iowa State Cyclones. And I told you that the real irony of all of this, Drew, is that when that situation played out last year after the game and, or during the game and then after, and it comes out that K-State seemed to think something might have been up with what Iowa State was doing. Something nefarious was going on there. And Iowa State fans have spent this entire year thinking that they have the mental edge on K-State, that they broke K-State. And look, it's not been a good season for K-State, but I can guarantee it has nothing to do with anything Iowa State has done. It has a lot to do with K-State not being a good team early, not figuring their crap out. Now we're starting to see the players on this team have their crap figured out. It's looking a lot better. But now you think about how it has transpired. K-State won the game in Bramlage last year, the first game after the incident here in Hilton. Then, yes, they played in the Big 12 tournament, but also K-State was coming off of a grueling game with Texas the night before. They were in it for a little bit, got away from whatever. Then they come to Hilton Coliseum, where K-State was on the verge of tying a school record for most consecutive road losses. K-State had lost 15 straight road games. The last road game K-State won came in Morgantown last season. Then everybody remembers the string, the close call at Texas Tech, everything else that came off of that. And K-State comes in today against an Iowa State team that they had won, was it 29 straight home games?
29 straight home games for Iowa State that they won.
So dominant at home, a team that was struggling on the road, the number 3 team in the country against easily the most underwhelming and disappointing team, certainly in the Big 12 this season. But when you think about Power 4 teams nationally, K-State and Arkansas are probably duking it out with each other for who's been the bigger disappointment, and K-State's been worse than Arkansas. But K-State comes in here, they take an early punch from Iowa State, and they respond. They get in it. They have a 2-point lead at halftime, and they come out and immediately force TJ Otzelberger to use a timeout in the first 2 minutes of the second half. The lead ballooned all the way to 19 points, and most impressive what K-State was able to do today, this thing got down to 6 points after it had been all the way up to 19. And somehow, and there was a lot of time left, K-State kept themselves in it, made plays, fought it off, and they end up winning by 19 points today. 80-61, they take down the number 3 team in the country, the Iowa State Cyclones, and that means when they go on the road Tuesday to face Arizona State, who's coming off of a heartbreaking loss today at home to their rival Arizona, K-State won't have the baggage of trying to avoid the longest losing streak on the road in school history, and now they'll probably have even more confidence that if we can win on the road in Hilton, you can do it anywhere. And the last thing I'll add before I hand this off to you, Drew, we've spent the last 3 weekends, Allen Fieldhouse, Bramlage for a blowout over West Virginia, and then today in Hilton. The 2 toughest places to play in the Big 12, Allen Fieldhouse and Hilton Coliseum. K-State has, late in the game, had the crowd silenced. And even more impressive than Allen, they were only within 6 points, and the crowd really was like, what is going on here? They were shell-shocked. Today, I mean, it was moments where nothing was happening. The crowd was out of it for most of the game. It got loud during that run, but K-State was able to find a way to battle through that and push themselves over the top. And the biggest feat of them all, bigger than winning by 19 points today over Iowa State, we didn't have to hear the juicy wiggle at all. And that is a massive win when you come to Ames, Iowa, and you don't have a bunch of fans wiggling all over you.
Yeah, I mean, it really shows K-State has figured something out. Like that, I still need to write my what we learned piece from this game. Like the number one thing is that K-State has figured it out. Like that was a team that has really been struggling. They took a big punch because Iowa State came out, went 5 of 6 from the field to begin the game, hit I believe 3 3-pointers in the first few minutes, and K-State clawed their way back into it. And there was probably about the midway point of the first half where I looked at you and said, Iowa State's shooting 75%, but it's only tied. Like Iowa State cools off. Like K-State's in a really good position to potentially go on a run, and then the run comes. And when the run came, TJ Otzelberger lost his mind on the opposite baseline from us, and got a technical to try and fire up his team. And K-State, again, kind of just, I feel like a football thing right now, because I'm going to say that it's a Chris Kleiman saying K-State really stayed in the fight and really responded to adversity well. And it wasn't just one player. Like I've said so many times this season, K-State is at their best when they have multiple guys that are really playing well, because that's just how this team is built to operate. Doug McDaniel has 20 points. David Gasson has 10. Max Jones has 12. Brendan Hazen has 15. And Coleman Hawkins has 17. And you're getting that kind of balance on offense. You're just really hard to guard. And then defensively, K-State took a huge step in the right direction on the defensive end of the floor. Brendan Hazen had, I think, the best defensive game maybe of his entire life today. The plus minus, again, this is where it lies a little bit too, because it says that K-State was only 13 points better when Brendan Hazen was on the floor. But I don't believe that for a second. He was probably K-State's best player today.
But think about, you look at the talk plus minus. We know flawed, very flawed, but you have to use it in a way that you can understand it. And maybe only 13 points better when Hazen was on the floor, but they were -2 when CJ Jones was on the floor. They were -1 with Moby Ikegaruhu, although that's not reflective of Moby's day. He came in, and once again, we're talking after a game, the role that he was given, he succeeded in today. He got some boards. He got the basket when it was there. Like Moby brought the effort and energy that he needed. So credit there. But yeah, it's about keeping guys off the floor as much as it is putting yourself on the floor and being successful. And K-State had to do a lot of yo-yoing with that today. I mean, the foul trouble, it was significant because basically the 3 best players today for K-State in this game all ended up in foul trouble at one point or the other. Doug McDaniel had 3 fouls with over 4 minutes to go in the first half. Miraculously didn't pick up another one the rest of the way, but guys that did, Max Jones ended with 4, Coleman Hawkins ended with 4, David Gasson had 3.
This is also why give me a break if you think this officiating was one-sided and you're an Iowa State fan. K-State had 2 guys with 4 fouls, another with 5, and all of the starters had at least 2.
Yeah, Hazen's the only one that didn't get to 3 of guys that played major minutes today. And, I mean, K-State had 22 fouls called on them in the game. Iowa State had 16. And, look, there were a couple, just like either side, where I think they were weak. And I think that the officiating – it's tough to do Iowa State-Houston games because those teams are pretty physical. But this crew today had a tough time balancing, okay, are we going to call maybe some of the weaker ones, or are we just going to go with the strong ones? So they kind of jostled back and forth. But it was impressive what K-State was able to do today and come through on this end to get the victory over Iowa State. And you talk about looking up and saying, man, K-State's got the lead somehow, and Iowa State's doing this and this and this. It's because K-State found a way in some of these other areas that were so important. And I talked about after they lost at TCU on the road, that they struggle in these games on the road to get to the free throw line the same amount of times as their opponent. Today, K-State shot 21 free throws. Iowa State finished with 19 free throws. Another really important thing that K-State doesn't do very well typically, although they've been better the last couple of weeks, is shoot the 3 ball. Second straight game, K-State's over 50% from 3 in a game. They were getting good looks. They were taking what was there that they needed to, and they did everything better offensively than Iowa State today. The only thing that the teams were even in, they both turned it over 18 times. But, I mean, that's a credit for K-State to be able to rebound from their turnovers that caused problems, and the fact that they were able to force Iowa State to match them, because we know how good Iowa State is defensively. And that really is almost what sparked the run for Iowa State to get back in the game. Was the defense wasn't going to let up like they normally do. The offense, though, they were getting buckets quick, and everything was building. The pressure was there. But K-State continued to respond well to get the third straight Big 12 win.
Yeah, I think that the other thing that really sticks out to me, we've talked all season, K-State is a pretty good offensive rebounding team. They're not so good on the defensive glass, but today K-State wins second chance points 21-6 in a 19-point game, and that's something that just shouldn't be overlooked when you look at how this game ends up. Another one that really kind of stands out to me is you talked about getting to the free throw line, which I've been harping on for a long time, has been something they need to do, home, road, whatever. But they get to the free throw line 21 times today, make 18 of them. This has been a pretty poor free throw shooting team, to put it lightly, in terms of what they should be. But you had Brennan Hazen, who has uncharacteristically been a pretty poor free throw shooter for his standards this season, goes 9 of 9. Coleman Hawkins has had the lowest free throw shooting percentage of his entire career this season, goes 4 of 4. So it really was a total team effort. And it is actually kind of wild to think about that K-State wins this game, because we're looking around right now, and I figured that there was going to be at least some Iowa State fans that stayed for post-game stuff, but it cleared out so incredibly fast. And to just kind of see that, it's why road wins, I think, are always more satisfying than winning at home. But to come into this environment and to really control the game, because K-State led for 25 minutes. They controlled the game for the most part outside of that first 4 minutes. So to do that, I think, is extremely impressive. And again, I said it after the Oklahoma State game Wednesday night that K-State was starting to figure it out. And we had comments saying that K-State wasn't going to win a 10th game. Well, this is win number 10.
Well, let's dive into the comments and everything, because Zach wanted to pop off. He was wrong. They got to the 10 wins. Now he's throwing out the challenge. Can they get to 17 wins, Drew? So get on the math in your head right now. If you think is 17 a possibility, probably not. That's a lot. That's especially with the schedule that's left. But as we talked about, you get this win now. Everything that's left for K-State is a winnable game based off the way that they've played over essentially the last 2.5, 3 weeks now. I mean, since the Texas Tech game, which they could have won at home, they've and it was ugly, but they could have won that game. And then you look around today at how it ends up playing out. Like they're giving themselves every opportunity, and you came in and conquered the toughest road environment in the Big 12. It's not a guarantee now that they go on the road and they're able to handle Arizona State on Tuesday. Like, this is still the team that lost to Wichita State and Drake and all these other teams. Like, we know that it's a possibility, but they're playing like a different team right now. They're playing along the lines of what people expected, and really what that comes down to, because I was talking to Alec Bussey afterward, or in the middle of the game. I came down to go get water because it's 1 billion degrees in this building. But I stopped and I talked to him. He's like, Doug's played really well today. Coleman's played really well. I said, well, this team, once they got the buy-in that you need to be a smart basketball player and a good teammate, we've seen it turn out well for them. We've also seen they've started to play towards their strengths a little bit more. They've gotten more aggressive in some areas, and it's worked out well for them. I mean, Coleman Hawkins has started to realize, oh, you know what? I'm a pretty skilled player. I typically have about 4 inches on the guy that's defending me. You know what? Maybe I should take him down a little bit. Today, he got some looks from 3, and he didn't pause. He let him fly. Like, that's what we've been asking for. I know it's been a struggle with him shooting the ball this year in terms of percentage, but I still know what I saw for 4 seasons at Illinois, and that's what was a good basketball player. So I didn't think that was just going to disappear, and it's still there somewhere. So the confidence is a big thing, and Coleman Hawkins, Doug McDaniel, their turnarounds, and the fact that they stuck with it and stayed locked in, they are the 2 biggest drivers of why K-State's won 3 straight games in the Big 12 right now.
Yeah, in terms of the question, though, 17, I just did the math. That have K-State going 7-3 the rest of the way. Probably not realistic, but 16 feels like a good number. Like, end of the season 16-14. But I'll say again, and I said this Wednesday night, and I think that a lot of people kind of just rolled their eyes that you beat Oklahoma State. This is a team I wouldn't want to play if I was if I was a Big 12 team right now, because this is the K-State team that I think we kind of anticipated seeing before the season that has played in the last. I would even go back to say the last 5 games. That if this is the K-State team that we really expected to see all season long, and if they're starting to click, like if I'm Arizona, if I'm Kansas, if I'm Iowa State again, I'm a little bit nervous going into Manhattan knowing that this team is starting to figure it out.
Yeah.
All right, what else do we got here?
Right, let's see. Let's get a couple up for you. Oh, because you like this topic.
Oh, yes. Scott Drew should be the Big 12 Coach of the Year because K-State has won 3 straight games after we talked to him. And also, they need to find a way to get Scott Drew to talk to K-State more. Scott Drew, rough day so far, because last time I saw they were down to almost 15. Yeah, but that speech, whatever was said, I think that for the K-State players, from talking to some people close to the program, it was just that they saw somebody else believe in them that wasn't just on their own staff. And I think that's a big thing, because, I mean, I've harped on it a few times that these guys are making a lot of money and they need to be producing, but at the same time, like, they are still 18 to 23-year-olds who don't really know anything about anything. And if they see somebody else that has like won a national championship that didn't have to come into the K-State locker room, say that he believes in them and what they can do, I think that's a big deal. And I think that that's been part of the success in these last few games. And again, find a way to get Scott Drew back in Manhattan to talk.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good point, because if things are going as bad as they were for this team, and I talked about it, I think the TCU loss was the first like real breaking point for this team. I think they thought, hey, we got Cincinnati, we're turning this thing around. They looked like they were driving and maybe going to be able to win that game over TCU, and instead it falls apart in the last couple minutes. They lose, and then at that point, I think it was just like, we suck. This thing's over. And they go on and they get blasted by Oklahoma State, and they return home and got blasted by Houston. And then, you start to see, and you can only hear people close to you tell you how great you are, or how much they love you. And you're like, yeah, that's awesome. But like, Jerome Tang, you're our coach. You have to say this stuff. Anybody else's, you have to say this stuff. It's just like when, you're playing basketball or something as a kid, and your mom's telling you how great you are. Well, she's your mom. She kind of has to tell you that. You need somebody else to be able to tell you that, and when things are going wrong. So I think that is a big deal, where you get that outside voice. And I think, I don't even know if it necessarily needed to be Scott Drew, but I think Scott Drew is obviously the type of person, the connection with Jerome Tang, the guy he is, that he felt like that was necessary. And it's worked out for K-State. And make no mistake about it, like, the K-State coaching staff has done their job in this well, like, and the players have stepped up. I think that the accountability has been there, and we've seen the amount of guys getting into games. The rotations have shortened up, and that probably goes to talk about just how much certain guys have locked in and how they're playing right now. So they deserve a lot of credit as well. Let's get into some of the others real quick here, and we'll keep all of your comments coming with what we got going on. Some comments about CJ Jones' play today. CJ struggled. I thought he and David Gasson, of the major minutes getters today, really struggled, although Gasson came up big probably the last 6-7 minutes of the game, got some big boards, had some blocks.
After he got racked, he played well.
Yeah, well, that's enough to fire up any guy, I think. Once you fully recover from that situation, you're good to go. But they had a tough night, but not everybody can play great. But you had a lot of guys that did. We talked about Doug McDaniel. 5 turnovers. The thing is, though, when you watch the game, number one, high turnover game for both teams, but it didn't feel like Doug McDaniel turned it over 5 times. Brendan Haasen, yes, the offense was there. His 2 threes that he hit, they were big. They were tough shots, but he knocked them down. Even bigger than that, though, you mentioned 9 of 9 at the free throw line, and just putting it on the record, I said Brendan Haasen's not going to miss another free throw until at least 3 weeks from now. So, and I said that when he was only like 4 for 4 in the game. So I just, whatever. But then you go in and you look at
the Arizona State game, in case you were wondering.
All right, that's good to know.
State game in Manhattan, I should say.
So you had that, but his defense, something that, you don't expect defense from Brendan Haasen. So he comes through with that. The steals were big on his part. He ends up with 3 steals. Coleman Hawkins had 4 steals. the hands were active. They were smart about it throughout the day. And just it comes down to hustle, too. And we talked about it so much after whatever struggles this team had early in the season. It could mean the Wichita State game. And we talk a lot about football, too. Give a damn.
Yeah.
This team maybe lacked it at some times, but something has shifted within all of them to where it's back and they're using it in a way. And you are getting the version of this team, at least close to what we expected from them this season. And now it just turns everything into, okay, what comes next? Bracket Cat, very fitting for Bracket Cat to ask in terms of postseason, maybe now, but in terms of playing with pride, mission achieved. So, I mean, what we keep talking about it because it is something now. This team, again, record-wise, it's not great. They're not going to be an NCAA tournament team unless they win the Big 12 tournament. But
or they just win the rest of the regular season games.
That's true. That just that one simple act could be enough for you. But I think this team probably at this stage is looking, can we play well enough to put ourselves in a position where we can maybe make it into some kind of postseason, keep playing together. And a lot of these guys now, the tide is shifting, and we've talked about that a lot. Who do you want back? Well, you want Doug McDaniel back. You want Brendan Hazen back the way that they're playing. Obviously, Castillo is a guy that will be back. Moby Ike Garuka playing his role well. You want him back. You hope that something really stupid happens where more weirdos cry to the NCAA about eligibility, and Max Jones, his years he played at a Division II school get wiped off the map, and he gets to come back. Like, that's a guy that you wish you could have back right now. But you want these guys to play together when they're going to come back. You know, last year in the NIT, I was fine with it because, you know, I'd rather have K-State playing basketball than not. Give me something to watch. But that was a team that we knew for the most part wasn't going to come back completely whole. Like, we knew that there was some work that was going to be done to the roster. Whereas this year's team, yeah, you won't have Hawkins back. You won't have Gasson. You probably won't have Max Jones back. But there are a lot of other guys on this team that would be pieces that could come back. And as you've turned this thing around, really since, you know, keeping it tight at Kansas, almost taking down Baylor, and now this winning streak, I think you want these guys to keep playing together and try to finish this thing on a high note and see where it extends from there. So, I again, the likelihood of it, it's not great, but you're going to put yourself in a position to at least make it a thought now. And as we keep saying, the real mission is to show up in Kansas City and just tell yourself, we are a good team. We have the chance to fight here, and just see what happens over the course of 4 or 5 days. And then we'll follow along with it from there too.
By the way, so just some housekeeping here. K-State is now 3-2 against ranked teams this season, which is tied for third in the Big 12. That is more ranked wins, by the way, than Houston, Texas Tech, and Kansas. So you get all of that. The race for 8th that we've been talking about, it's going to be pretty tight. This is a big win for K-State, and especially if they can win Tuesday night, that race for 8th that we've kind of joked about, like that's a legitimate scenario that K-State would only have to play 4 games in 4 days. We got
look at this. We got an all-star.
Oh, this is an all-star. Would I prefer to play NIT or Vegas? To be honest, I know nothing about the Vegas tournament. So I'm going to say Vegas, but no real preference for me.
I think that the Vegas tournament it will probably end up at some point being better. But I think the reality is it would probably be the NIT. I don't know that they've got enough juice for the Vegas thing because of how the automatics work. But yeah, I don't know enough about it. I don't care to know enough about it until maybe somebody ends up.
Unless we have to know about it, it's like, for me, it's I don't really want to think about it. Well, I saw one that I just liked.
Well, Street Crawler said NCAA or bust. I love the enthusiasm. Keep it up. I'm going to let Street Crawler be the only guy banging that drum, though. We'll continue to be a little bit more realistic here.
I saw one comment up there that if they continue to play like this, that you think that they'll go undefeated? Probably not. Basketball is so unpredictable. Like, that's what makes Houston such a machine right now, and why Iowa State's home winning streak was so impressive. It is so freaking hard to win consistently in college basketball because there are so many variables on any given night. Like, all it takes is, like, if you're an Iowa State fan, you're saying to yourself, even if you want to get on the ref jump or whatever, that you're probably saying to yourself that K-State was 50% from 3-point range tonight. Like, how duplicatable is that? I don't know. But that's why you can't go undefeated, probably.
Yeah, it's just it's tough to do in basketball. But what I will say again, this team is playing well enough, and we talked about the schedule that's left. Like all of the road games that you're going to have are gettable. Anybody could. I mean, we already knew this, that K-State can beat anybody in Bramlage, even as they were playing at other points in the season, except maybe Houston. I think Houston is the only team that they're pretty impenetrable right now with their faults. So somebody will get them at some point, but it's going to be interesting when it happens. But yeah, everybody else and K-State could finish this thing with a respectable enough record considering what they came from. The one downside of this, I know everybody's like, oh, here comes Mason Voth, Debbie Downer herself rolling into the conversation. But it's games like this and the way K-State's played over the last 3 weeks that you just say to yourself, man, they royally screwed this thing up in November and December and early January. Like even you think of the start of Big 12 play, and I'll throw up the post from Bracket Cat about wishing that K-State had a do-over against TCU and Tech. I would also throw Oklahoma State in there as well. But those were all games that K-State should have won in Oklahoma State case. And if you do that, this thing is different. I mean, you go and take away just a little bit of what K-State has left, then they're in a much different position. We might be having this conversation. It's unfortunate the way it worked out. Baylor is another one.
Texas also, Texas Tech is another one.
Yeah, you just had all these games slip away from you, but it just drives the knife in a little bit more about how disappointing and tough this season has been. But with that, I've told people over the last couple of weeks, you have to get past that now and focus on what's happening in front of you in the current moment. And this team is playing hard for each other. They're playing hard for you, the fans, because they're playing their butts off for Kansas State. And they just gave you one really sweet win here today in Hilton Coliseum. You should eat it up and expect good things moving forward from them. And what this team is doing, it's not going to change how disappointing this season has been in the grand scheme of things, but it is going to change the perception and the way that people think about them. And I think that is an exciting thing for these guys. And like we've talked about, everything that's in front of you, you're going to have the opportunity for that. Now let's get into, fan, you didn't have to remind me. Trust me, nobody is more hurt by the fact that they lost to Wichita State this year than me. Please. That was a personal attack by him to bring that up. That was nasty work. Every time I have to drive by 21st and Hillside, I tell my daughter to close her eyes because that's the side of the worst moment of her father's life. So I know, and I've seen some ugly stuff on the basketball court this season. I've seen some ugly things in my life, and boy, that's a memory that I wish I could have back. But let's talk about today a little bit deeper, because we saw this game play out. We saw the initial push by Iowa State that we thought, oh, this is going to be easy. Very similar to the Allen Fieldhouse situation where it's just like, here is the game opponent, very tough building to play in. Take it, run with it. We don't want it. And Jerome Tang, who early on in the season we talked about timeout usage was questionable. And he's, I think, really found his rhythm lately. And he's done some good things. He sparked some good things from it. But K-State answers back. They come in, they take advantage of this, and you look at how things ended up working out. There were only a handful of lead changes in this game. I mean, K-State only had to take the lead 3 times in this game. So, Drew, I'll ask you just a couple moments from this game that stand out to you, because the players, the team, everybody deserves that. And also, I know all of you watching this want to revel in the fact that the Iowa State fans did not handle it very well today.
So a couple things that I think stand out to me is the ability to take the punch. Like this early in November, if K-State gets down that way to start the game, K-State probably rolls over. K-State was able to come back and cut into the lead and got it down to a 1-point game before the next media timeout after starting down 13-4. So I think that's something that should really be highlighted and celebrated, because, I said it Thursday night, ironically, in a K-State win over Iowa State. A lot of teams would probably fold and roll over in that spot. The K-State women did not on Thursday. The K-State men do not today. So to see that, I think, was really impressive. Not a specific moment, but just a player that I think needs to be highlighted, because we haven't talked about him a ton. Max Jones played his ass off today. He always does, but he was diving on the floor. He was the first to the floor so many times today, making hustle play after hustle play. Got some huge rebounds into with 7. Foul trouble was the only thing that really stopped him from having an even better game. When you look at his final stat line, 12.7 rebounds, 2 assists, and then a steal. So he was big. And then the other one that I want to point out, we talked about him a little bit, but Moby Ike Garuka just plays so hard. And he knows his role.
The Moby bump.
Yes, the Moby bump, as Mason has called it. Like, he plays so incredibly hard and was out in some clutch moments on defense. And Brendan Hazen was so good defensively. David Gasson and Ugana and Yenso have struggled for 2 games in a row now. So they have to get that figured out. But everything else that K-State has done recently has kind of gone to gold. The other thing that I would point out, and this is more a big picture, but not even for K-State necessarily, this loss probably takes Iowa State out of winning the Big 12.
Yeah, we brought that up. You think about where this is at. I mean, Houston hasn't lost a game yet. Iowa State has lost 3 of them. And so the pacing of where this is all starting to go, you think of how that goes together. And then on top of that, we talk about how Iowa State people thought that they broke Jerome Tang in K-State. In reality, I think the Cats have earned the mental edge there now. Iowa State has to come to Manhattan for the 2nd straight year on the last day of the regular season. And last year, they were never really in the game with a chance to win the Big 12 on that day. So, yeah, they have that difficulty in front of them. And what you said, they have to go to Allen on Monday?
Yes, they go to Allen Fieldhouse Monday night.
Yeah, so, yeah, there you go. That's a double whammy there, so that's big. A couple of other notes here, and then I'll get into some things that stood out to me from the game. This is from Jeff Borzello. K-State is the first sub-500 team to beat a top-5 opponent on the road by 15-plus points in the history of the AP poll. Then the other nugget that was passed along, also coming from ESPN, teams under 500 on the road against top 10 teams had lost 95 games in a row. So K-State obviously broke that streak. I believe the notification that I got said that it was the first time since February 7th, 2018, that a below 500 team was able to go on the road and beat a top 5 team like K-State just did today. And not only did they do it, they did it by 19 points. They annihilated Iowa State. And the fact that the crowd was silenced was enjoyable, the way that it ended up playing out today. And then, I mean, just the talk of the fans afterwards was enjoyable to hear. It was comical.
It's now a win streak, too. 3 in a row.
Yeah, it got a lot going. But inside the game, both of Brendan Hazen's threes were big. Doug McDaniel hit some big shots. And really the surprise was anytime you got something out of Brendan Hazen on the defensive end, you're like, whoa, this is not typically who he is. And I would say don't expect that fully moving forward from him. Like that, he's just not going to be able to bring that on a nightly basis. But he did a really nice job of getting this thing to where he hustled. He gave it some great effort. And he was a big part of why K-State won today, and they all stepped up. It's crazy. The other moments in the game that were great, when Otzelberger was losing his mind at midcourt, he was trying to earn that tee. He wanted to try and fire his guys up, and it worked for a little bit of a stretch there. But I wanted to mention what we saw from how K-State came off the floor, and it was clear to me how much they knew that this was a big game for Jerome Tang. And they wanted to step up for him, get the job done, and they did that. And I think that comes out of an affinity for their head coach. And we know that some guys at points in this season were not buying into it. They were not doing what they needed to do. And I think Coleman Hawkins and Doug McDaniel might have been 2 of the biggest issues in that, and not necessarily in terms of for some of them, like what they were doing actions-wise, just there wasn't the full buy-in that was needed. And again, I've said, I think Jerome Tang is a coach that not everybody can play for, but I think they've started to get it. And what we saw today was that they wanted to come through for Jerome Tang. They did it. It was impressive. And this is one to really enjoy, because I mean, this is one of the more satisfactory K-State road wins in a long, long time. I mean, I'm trying to think of what you would go back to. Obviously, nothing I think can get past maybe Jim Wooldridge and Allen Fieldhouse in 2006. But along the way there, it's tough to find some that feel like this one did because of everything that we saw transpire last year, how this team has played, but they're getting it together right now. And you know what they're doing, Drew?
What?
They're going Mr. 3000 on this thing.
There you go. In our lifetime, like the KU game in 06 with Wooldridge, like I don't really remember that game. I remember that I was in Orlando, but I don't remember anything of that game. So you kind of look and you think, like it probably has to be this one. Like this was such an amped atmosphere because they wanted to really stick it to Jerome Tang and K-State. I've never seen an opposing coach get booed as loud as Jerome Tang did when he walked out. And for Iowa State fans to be leaving with 2.5 minutes to go, I think are two things that really stand out and really make me laugh when you kind of think about the grand scheme of like what Iowa State fans thought this game was going to be. Because I think that they really thought that they were going to get in K-State's head and kind of run away with it, especially after the first few minutes. Like K-State fires the punch and ends up winning the game by almost 20 points. You know, some would say I was not bold enough in my bold predictions when I said that K-State was only going to keep this into a single-digit game. I'm sorry. I apologize. I was wrong. I just did not think it was going to be a double-digit K-State win.
Yeah. We'll go final call for questions or comments in the chat right now. I want to get into this real quick. Okay, let's just keep ourselves honest here. We're going to get to your bold predictions. K-State keys for an upset win at number 3 Iowa State. My first key was composure. I think K-State kept themselves pretty well composed throughout the game today, and the way that they played. I mean, obviously, I think the fact that they had a real Coleman Hawkins in a couple times, which is to be expected. But obviously, Jerome Tang kept himself locked in and did things the way he needed to. But then all the other guys, they were ready to step in, not miss a beat. Also credit Coleman Hawkins for 39 minutes of action today. K-State needing the 3. We've seen them get more and more productive at shooting the 3 over the last handful of games. They did it again today, shooting 50%, 10 of 20. They hit them at the right time. And really the big one is the fact that Coleman Hawkins hit all 3 that he took. Doug McDaniel, when it was there, he took them, knocked him down, 3 of 6. So that was a significant thing as well. And then my last one was to match Iowa State's physicality. I think K-State did it for the most part. I mean, we saw at points, I think obviously both sides. We heard the Iowa State fans talking near us afterwards. They thought that K-State was getting away with some stuff. I think both sides handled that pretty well to where K-State last year, I thought they were a little scared to try and, get as bumpy and reachy as Iowa State can play at times. But I think they realized today, hey, we got to do it. And I think you have more of the guys with the personality that understand we're going to do this. That's kind of how we want to play anyways. So I think K-State did a good job in all of that. Now let's get into Drew's bold predictions here. And again, these are bold predictions. So
this is a swift O of 3 before we get into it.
But I think bold predictions have to be graded on a curve. I don't think it's black and white. Like Coleman Hawkins records a double-double. No double-double for Coleman Hawkins today. But, you get 17 points from him, 7 boards, 3 assists. You'll take that. And the fact, too, that he only turned the ball over once. He had 4 steals. Like, he did a little bit of everything in today's game. So, not exactly what you wanted, but it's close. The single-digit point differential, that is a massive whiff on your part. But, again, this is where we graded on a curve and we realized that you were just saying K-State kept it close in the loss. Well, K-State won the game, and then Max Jones and his threes. You were trying to will it into existence. He hit 2 pretty quickly to start the game, and then nothing else.
He stopped shooting after he missed the first one. Max, you got to let him fly, brother. I needed that 4 threes.
Come on, brother. Let him fly. So that's what we got there. Good question from Bracket Cat. Will the ASU guy who got ejected today for the headbutt have to sit out the first half against us? We kind of saw that happen while we were keeping tabs on it up here, but without listening to the game and knowing exactly what was assessed and how it worked out, I can't tell you for certain because we don't even know. I mean, I know that the broadcast put up the graphic that it was double technicals were handed out, but I wasn't entirely sure if it was a flagrant or how it worked out. So I don't know. And Drew's trying to show me something from NCA&T. The only problem is they spell exceptions wrong in it, so I don't know how. So we'll just wait and see. But it would be a significant thing if Freeman isn't able to play for Arizona State on Tuesday, because he's one of their leading scorers. He had 19 today, and they're lost to Arizona. So we'll monitor that and see. But K-State gives themselves a chance. They go face ASU, and then they come back to Manhattan for two really big home games against KU next Saturday, and then Arizona the following week. So that'll do it for us here from Hilton Coliseum today. 80-61, the Cats take down the Clones. We'll have more thoughts on this over at KStateOnline.com. So go to On3, find it. If you're not signed up, do it quickly, because you'll want to be a part of all the fallout from K-State's big win in Hilton today, snapping that big long road losing streak and everything else that comes with it, and trying to get this thing grinding in the right direction to where, it will likely not save this season, but things are starting to look up moving forward for K-State.
Caleb Love will not be allowed to play at BYU for Arizona, and then BJ Freeman also has to sit out when K-State goes to Arizona State.
All right. There's your BJ update for today. That's a little KSO inside joke that if you're not a part of KSO and you're just watching, go over there, figure it out, and I'm sure you'll get more BJ updates moving forward. So big one for K-State today. Credit to the Cats. They're playing hard. They're doing everything you want. People should be proud of this team right now for the way that they've responded, and you shouldn't doubt that they are going to keep bringing it for you. So that'll do it. Cats win it 80-61 today in Hilton. For Drew Galloway, I'm Mason Voth. Thank you for watching K-State Online, and head on over there to get the rest of your post-game coverage, because we're getting kicked out of Hilton. They're tired of our Wildcat butts smacking them down today, I guess.